and welcome to Kitchen Sink with G. In this mini-series, we'll be covering everything that you need to know about the 4 phases of the female menstrual cycle. In each episode, we're diving into specifically what's happening, what you might be feeling as a result, how to eat, how to move, and how to work, so how to optimize your productivity in that phase. In this episode, we're getting into the follicular phase. The follicular phase is classically known as the first half of the cycle from day 1, so that is the start of your period, until you ovulate, so day 14. The first half of your cycle. On the map of the 28-day cycle, here, this first half will be the follicular phase. Classically, the menstrual phase is included in the follicular phase, and it's also known as the early follicular phase. But for the sake of this, I'm separating the menstrual phase as its own phase and the follicular phase as its own phase, because they both have different physiologies, hormones, things that are going on that make them independent. I've said that it is the first half of the cycle, which would assume that it would be 14 days long of a 28-day cycle. However, this phase is the most variable in length. It's typically 14 days, but it can be anything from 7 to 21 days, which would, if it's 21 days, it would make your cycle a lot longer. If it's 7 days, it would be a lot shorter. But the follicular phase is defined by the start of the period, so start of menstruation, which would be the end of the luteal phase and the end of the last cycle. And then it finishes with ovulation. So it is the first half of the cycle. You'll obviously know when your period comes and when it goes. That signifies that you are entering your follicular phase. And you'll also feel your energy start to rise. The lightness, floatiness, inward energy that you had during your menstrual phase will start to wane, and you'll want to come out more. You'll feel a bit more energetic, a bit more sociable, a bit more motivated. You want to do things and get out and action tasks and actually go and do things. So what's actually happening in the follicular phase? The follicular phase is, as the name suggests, all about the follicles. The follicles is where the eggs are prepared. You've got multiple follicles inside your ovaries, and inside those follicles are eggs. In this phase, all the follicles are stimulated to develop by a specific hormone called follicular stimulating hormone, and they all grow and compete with each other for dominance. There will be one follicle that becomes the dominant follicle, and that contains the egg. There's multiple follicles that get fertilized. That would lead to twins. But anyway, there's traditionally one follicle that will develop and get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and stronger, and that is the follicle that will burst during ovulation, and that's the egg that will be fertilized. Simultaneously, the endometrial lining that was just broken down in the menstrual phase is also rebuilding, but this phase is mostly all about developing follicles to produce a dominant follicle. So there's an interesting scientific phenomenon which goes on in this phase called a positive feedback loop. So these developing follicles produce estrogen. After one dominant follicle is selected, it produces a lot of estrogen. Estrogen is an anabolic hormone, so estrogen itself stimulates the follicle to grow more. The growing follicle, which is getting bigger, produces more estrogen, which then makes the follicle grow bigger, which produces more estrogen, which makes the follicle grow bigger, and it can actually reach 2 to 3 centimeters in size, which is pretty big for something that's like inside. But the dominant follicle will continue to grow and grow and grow until essentially it bursts, which we'll talk about in the ovulatory phase. So specifically on the hormones, throughout the follicular phase, I'm going to call the whole thing the follicular phase, from the early follicular phase, which is the menstrual phase, right up into late follicular, which finishes with ovulation, has been a gradual rise in FSH. As we just spoke about, the follicles are developing, follicles produce estrogen, which means estrogen is really going to elevate quite fast until it peaks right before ovulation. LH also peaks right before ovulation. The other hormones that we know about, progesterone isn't really around. The main ones here are going to be estrogen. This is an estrogen dominant phase. FSH obviously stimulating the development of the hormones, and LH, which FSH and LH both regulate the production of the dominant follicle. So what you might be feeling in this phase. As we've said, you've just come out of your menstrual phase where you might be feeling a little bit more internal and a little bit more like reserved, sleepy, calm, and you're kind of coming out of that internal hibernation phase And if you really did, and what these videos are all about is about optimizing your cycle, right? So if you really tap into that, like just being calm during your menstrual phase, you are going to start to feel your energy rising. Once that estrogen starts to climb up, you are really actually going to feel, yeah, I've got tons of energy today, or I want to do this, I want to plan this, I want to go and see this person, or I've been thinking about this work project or this something project, and I'm gonna do it today. That's kind of the general feeling for the follicular phase. So you've got this rising physical, mental, everything energy, social energy, motivation is going to be higher, a bit maybe curious, experimental, a lot braver in this phase too, because you subconsciously know that you are stronger and more resilient and more powerful and motivated. So with that kind of confidence, you feel a bit braver to try something new, or experiment with something, or take a risk, or this is all things we're going to talk about later in ways that you do optimize this phase. Like, now is the time to be doing all of these things, but it reflects in how you actually feel. Like, you might be driving fast, don't drive too fast in your car, but driving faster or less careful, if that makes sense. Energized and like ready to like do things, take it on. Shit comes at you, no problem. Like, that's kind of the feeling for this phase. It's also a very creative phase, so you're thinking outside of the box and making plans if something doesn't go right, or solutions. You're very solution orientated. It's also a very communicative phase. You're fluid with your words. You have no problem communicating how you feel or what you want with other people. Optimistic, generally positive about life, and your mood is good and happy with yourself, happy with your life. You might also feel a little bit less hungry, like you've got a lot of energy and you're going and doing things, and we're going to get onto that in a bit, because it's natural for this phase to have a decreased appetite, but that's just one thing that you might not feel like you are that hungry. So on that note, how to eat. So how to optimize your nutrition for this phase. So the key nutrients here are there's a lot of random ones. A big one here is sulforaphanes. Long word, random word. It is phenomenal for liver detoxification. You find it in massive amounts in broccoli sprouts. Very random and very niche if you want to go make your own broccoli sprouts, but I'm pretty sure you can buy it, and you can buy it in little capsules too. But this is going to support the detoxification of excess hormones. So it is incredible for hormone balancing. If you have too much estrogen in this phase, or you haven't got rid of progesterone in the last phase, it's going to lead to hormone imbalance. You want to kind of keep it in check. Fermented foods, really key. They're also going to help your body balance estrogen and aid your digestive health, as will fiber. Antioxidants, again and again, that word, polyphenols, which are again gonna help your liver detox excess hormones and keep your hormones balanced and support the immune system, which is essential for a healthy ovulation. So you're kind of building up your immunity to ovulation. Zinc, vitamin E, and omegas are vital for ovulation. More important in the ovulatory phase, but you can start to kind of up those in the foods that you eat in this phase too. And a big thing here also, I mean, it's all phases of the cycle, stay hydrated. When your hormones start to elevate, this can influence your body's hydration levels. So as estrogen is getting to her peak around ovulation, really important towards the end of this phase, really important to keep hydrated, basically. Don't let yourself get dehydrated. Types of foods. This phase is also likened to spring. It comes after menstruation, which is the winter phase. After winter comes spring. So the kind of foods and ingredients that you find in springtime, or that grow in springtime, are your foods that you'll be eating in your follicular phase. It's all about kind of coming out, energy rising, out of hibernation. So think vibrant, light, green, fresh, balanced meals with low GI carbohydrates. Paleo-ish, if you had to like stick a diet on it, I'd say paleo. Raw foods are fine in this phase. In your menstrual phase and in your luteal phase, it's much harder to digest, but in your follicular and ovulatory phase, raw foods and more fiber as well. So basically you want lots of broccoli and lots of greens in this phase. Spring is kind of a very green phase in itself. So think majority, like most of your foods and your plates, mostly green. And all the micronutrients that you find in green foods are all very supportive of this phase. Your macros in this phase, your calorie intake is kind of baseline. You don't need to overdo it. As I said, your appetite's already probably going to be slightly lower, but definitely try and hit your caloric requirement for each day, definitely. And in this phase, your body does tend to favor carbohydrate than fats or protein as an energy source. Carbohydrate is a faster releasing energy, which in this phase where you are like energetic and doing things and being active and playing sport, carbohydrate is what's going to give you that energy to go and do that. In luteal phase, things are a lot slower and lower, which is where fats are better. But here, if you had to think of a dominant macro, just make sure you're hitting enough carbohydrates. So when you are eating your carbohydrates in this phase, make sure that they are like whole fruits, low GI sources, so the brown rice and the sweet potato and whole grains. Oats are a great food in this phase. I've got a whole list of phase-specific foods on my website, which I'll link below. If you're exercising too, you don't need too much energy before training. If there's any phase that you could do like a fasted training or fasted workout or whatever, it would be this phase. But with low levels of hormone, especially in the beginning of this phase, you will need energy for fuel. If you do feel like you need some energy before training and working out, have something banana-y or something more carbohydrate-y before training. But if you feel good to go, get on it. And then after training, up your protein. As we said, estrogen is an anabolic hormone, so it builds muscle. You need to put the protein in to help the muscle growth. As I said already, estrogen is probably going to naturally lower your appetite, so it's important to stay fueled. If you're not super hungry, make sure you still eat, but you don't have to eat masses. It's probably going to feel a bit like a heavy, big meal is probably going to weigh you down, to be very honest. So stick to light, fresh, vibrant foods to get the most out of this phase. And then the general aim with nutrition and the foods that you eat are to support the liver detox of excess hormones, and as estrogen starts to rise, you want to support the liver with this detoxification process. And then second big one is to support the development and the maturation of the follicles in the ovum. And basically, enjoy this phase. Enjoy the energetic outgoingness of this phase. Stay fueled, but think balanced, clean, healthy. Fuel your training. Don't overdo it. Don't overdo the heavy foods. And that's about it. How to move for your follicular phase. So, estrogen is dominant. We know this. So this is the time to be using that energy. This is the phase where you're going to have the energy to push your body, to reach your PBs, to lift heavy. So with your workouts and your strength workouts, lift heavier or up the resistance or the weight or the frequency of the reps. Implement more powerful exercises into your workouts, so ones that require force and strength and explosive movements. If endurance is your thing, you can run faster, run harder, though your endurance performance is significantly more improved and impacted when estrogen levels are super high. Functional training and functional fitness are great. Basically, in this phase, when estrogen levels are at their highest, is when strength is usually at its highest. Estrogen has a neuroexcitatory effect, which means that, if you break down the word neuroexcitatory, it's exciting the neurons and the neuromuscular function, which increases the force production potential. So this is why you are stronger in this phase and you're able to perform more explosive movements. Estrogen also will lower your recovery time. So basically it's easier and faster to recover from intense workouts while still going pretty hard and maxing out on the anabolic properties of this phase. Make sure that you refuel well after any intense workout with high amounts of protein. This promotes muscle repair. Try and refuel between 30 and 60 minutes after your workout. One thing to just watch for in this phase is that when estrogen is high, estrogen increases the laxity of your joints, which means laxity sounds a bit like elastic, right? It's how flexible your joints are. Estrogen has an effect where it increases the joint laxity, which means you are a little bit more supple and flexible. This is great, but also means that your tendency or your risk of hyperextending or pushing your joints past the point where it's used to is higher. So just prioritize your warm-up and your cool-down. How to optimize your productivity in your follicular phase. This phase, we've spoken a lot about the energy is rising, your motivation, your optimism, everything is like at its high. So these are your strengths. These are the strengths that you're going to play to in this phase. You're feeling adventurous, daring, creative. You've got a more expansive mindset that's less limiting. Your strengths, also your communication is really great in this phase. Your networking is great, resilience. So basically this is a good time, as it is with other aspects of your life, it is a good time to start actioning, start doing everything that you've thought about in your luteal phase, or you thinking about improvements in your menstrual phase. That's what you're now going to go and do in this phase. You're going to start actioning. You're going to get into your exciting projects. So it might be experimenting with an idea, learning, researching, or exploring a different approach that's going to get you started on the journey to doing. When you reach your peak, and that's ovulation, that's the crescendo. That's where if you're building up to a specific, like a presentation or something, your ovulatory phase would be the optimal time to do it. So right now you're building up to that phase and to that event. Though if that's not what your work looks like, now is the time to anyways be expanding your mind, testing yourself, and let yourself be tested. Try something new. Release any limits, basically. Dream big, let creativity flow, don't hold yourself back. Socialize, collaborate on projects and work. And if you're smart in this phase, you will plan and strategize and schedule so you get done what you need to and do it in your ovulatory phase, because you know that your energy is going to start to go down after that. So you would make sure that you get the bulk of the doing done in this phase, in ovulation. You've got between 7 and 21 days to be actioning and doing, but just know that this energy, this high energy that you're feeling right now, isn't going to last forever. It'll come around again in your next cycle, but right now this is your doing. The things to focus on now would be to develop your concepts. If you're creating foundations in your menstrual phase, now is the time to be actually like putting down the bricks and the cement. Teamwork, brainstorming, working together with others, networking, increase your network. You're very sociable in this phase and you can communicate well and you're candidly speaking. Now's a great time to expand that network and just play, experiment, have fun with it. As I mentioned already, just beware of over-planning and starting too many things that you might not have the energy or you might not be able to finish before your energy starts to drop. Another thing to be aware of is letting failure or something not going the way that you expected get to you. You are classically more resilient and motivated in this phase, so it typically shouldn't, but you're still more brave and you're taking more risks and you're getting yourself out there. So just as a precaution, make sure that if things don't go the way that you wanted them to, that it doesn't get you down and you move on to the next thing, or work with how it went and reshape it into something positive, because you're good at doing that in this phase too. Another thing to be aware of is to be taking on tasks for other people that aren't really you. You've got this high bubbly energy in this phase which other people will see and not take advantage of, but they'll see it, and basically it's not selfish to prioritize your own goals and what you are doing and your path, because this is going to ensure that you actually get where you want to go and not wind up feeling drained and unproductive and misplaced when you get to later phases in your cycle, like in your luteal phase, and you haven't done what you wanted to do because you were helping someone else or you're doing something else. I'm not saying don't help other people. Definitely you've got this vivacious energy right now, spread it around and share it, but don't let it come in the way of you actually reaching your goals or getting done what you want to get done in this phase. So prioritize actioning your plans towards your goals and your visions. This is a great time too to implement positive habits and routines that are going to help you the rest of your cycle. In your menstrual phase, you are building foundations and thinking about the way that you want this cycle to go. This is where you can implement the positive habits. Like you want to go and make a conscious effort to any kind of positive habits that are going to improve your life or your productivity or your physical health or your mental health or your emotional health or spiritual health, or all of those. Now implement it. You've got energy. It's an adaptive phase too. It's spring. You're on your way. You're sculpting your life basically now. So anything that's going to help you improve the rest of your cycle, start actioning it now. You will have thought about this in your luteal phase, which we're going to talk about in your luteal phase, where you review and think about ways that you can improve the next cycle. Now's the time where you're going to do that, implement it, and see the effect that it has on you and your energy and everything, which then you can review again in your luteal phase. This is what I friggin' love about this cycle, is that it's a constant cycle and a constant loop of improving and optimizing and learning at the same time. Also in this phase, Prioritize connecting with people and being social and seeing people you don't normally see or maybe sometimes don't want to see, especially in your luteal phase. Now's the time to, with your energy, to build upon your relationships, strengthen your relationships, water the seeds. And then the last thing, prioritize, just keep backing yourself. Don't let limiting mindsets or beliefs question your actions. Remember your why. Prioritize movement and food and sleep and rest too. But to get the most out of this phase, healthy and balanced food and movement routines is going to help you feel the best and naturally get the most out of this phase. And that is the follicular phase. Thank you so much for watching this video along. If you're not in your follicular phase right now, save this and watch it when you are in your follicular phase. Share it with anyone else who would love it and benefit from it too. I'd love if you liked this video, commented on this video, and of course subscribed to this channel where there's going to be so much more information. I haven't even scratched the surface of what I want to. I'm laying down some foundations now so that there is the basic information of each phase and the basic information basically. But there's so much that I'm going to get into that can help benefit you, your cycle. You knowing these things and passing it on to your friends is going to help them optimize their cycle. Your partner knows about this because you know about it and you tell them about it. They're going to help you, and it's going to help them, it's going to help everyone basically. So I'd love if you support this channel by liking, commenting, subscribing, and yeah, save this video because I know it's very information heavy, but when you're in this phase is a very good time to watch this and watch it on repeat and make sure that, you know, little things will stick differently at different times. Yeah. See you in the next episode. And and I've also I'm posting regularly now on my Instagram and TikTok, so I'd love if you check those out. That's where I'm putting some recipes. They're on the website as well, but they'll be in real form on Instagram as well. So make sure you check out Instagram, which is @KitchenSinkWithG, and give that a follow and share it with other people that might love it too. See you in the next episode.